chance to hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You can hear with some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to the
Good evening,
show.
Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our family near and far. How are you on this Tuesday? Yes. How are you? Welcome, one and all. It's good to be back with you here this evening for another episode of Sabrina Speaks. And tonight we're talking about, again, we're going to continue the conversation, but we're also going to look into something that affects every single one of us, like so much things does. And whether we realize it or not, we're still on the topic of immigration. Yes, immigration fees. I went into this a little bit last night after going through the amendment bill, but we know that it impacts everybody, where fairness and future of our country is headed. And right now, as we alluded to earlier on and in yesterday's episodes, there are two major bills that are out for public consultation, which is key that we get your feedback. And those two are, where immigration is concerned, that is the Immigration Transition Fees Regulations 2026, that we'll go into that today. And we'll also go, and you're allowed to give your feedback based on yesterday's episode and what your takeaway was from that. Now, these proposed changes, as we're seeing, and even your feedback in relation to these fees and that bill that is proposed, is vital. And what does these changes mean for you? So, like I said, last night, we broke it down as best as we could in a consolidated format that I was able to give real-time and layman explanation as to what that legislation meant. I will do the same tonight, and I will entertain your calls. I will entertain your questions and your concerns, but I was just so happy that I was able to deliver that. 14 pages long, that's all it was, and breaking it down for each of you. But I would love to hear from you, and we're going to go into these transition fees. Yes, the Immigration Transition Fees Regulations, and for what that means for you. And your feedback is vital, as I said. So I thank you for your participation, for your questions that even came in afterwards. And what do you think about the proposed changes, or what do you think about what is being proposed? Do you feel that they're fair, and will it help or hurt us from business and families? Now, understanding that our government has to make revenue. They have to make money. But the aim is to spark discussion, to go through it together. And the phone lines are open, will be open. WhatsApp is also here, 345-936-8255, to send me a message on that as well. And like I said, if there was something that was said on yesterday's episode and you want to bring it up or you want to weigh in on it, by all means, of course. Your voice matters. Your feedback is vital. And like every other episode, you know how it goes. The content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and our participants, is intended solely for general, informational, and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional legal, medical, or financial advice. So I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for your specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. And to be a part of this live discussion this evening, feel free to WhatsApp message in on whatever social media platform you're streaming us live on, or you can call in and be a part of the discussion, which is always welcome. 345-936-8255 is the number to be a part of the conversation this evening. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Thank you for all of our new followers. We appreciate you. We see you, and you mean the world to us. And whether or not you follow, you're here. That's what matters, and your feedback is definitely greatly appreciated. Before getting into this evening's discussion, and let's just do what I normally do. Let's tell you about the cold front that moved into our area yesterday is now located east of Jamaica and has become stationary earlier today. Now, bringing with that are fairly similar weather conditions across the Cayman area, with very rough seas and strong winds to remain primarily in the features, the primary feature of the high winds. Now, marine watch remains in effect until late this afternoon, and strong wind advisory is in effect through the same period. Now, we're also expecting strong gusts are expected to persist, and radar imagery shows a localized bands of showers west of Little Cayman moving towards the south. The forecast for tonight calls for occasionally cloudy skies. Temperatures will fall to the upper 60s. Winds will be northeast 15 to 20 knots with higher gusts. Now, seas will be rough with wave heights of 5 to 7 feet, and swells are expected along the northern coast and likely along the western coast until after midnight. A small craft advisory will be in effect. There will be a low tide at 10:15 tonight, and tomorrow a high tide at 5:49 in the morning. Another low is expected at 12:01 p.m. tomorrow. Sun will set this evening at 6:28 and sun will rise tomorrow at 6:48. And the outlook is for a gradual decrease in winds and seas through Wednesday as the associated high pressure system begins to shift into the Western Atlantic Ocean. A small craft advisory will remain in effect until Thursday morning. I'm hoping that this is not the last cold front. I'm actually enjoying the cool temperatures. Marshall, I grudge you sometimes. Just sometimes. Hey, Damian Henry, how are you? You're early to class. And the first to comment this evening. And Marshall, good evening to you as well, my love. It is good to be back here with you. And it's always good to have all of you joining me here this evening because we're going to delve into some of those fees, break it down. And as I said, you all are welcome to give me your feedback and your takeaway of what was said yesterday. Because I know I was not able to deal with all the questions and comments that were in there, but I thank you all for your attention. Now let's turn it over a little bit to the headline news for today. And it's amazing when you're living in a country that even though stuff are happening, we got so much to be thankful for in comparison to some other jurisdiction. Let me tell you, we got a lot to be thankful for. But making local news, Premier Andre Ebanks attends the CARICOM 50th Summit. Yes, he is in St. Kitts and Nevis this week for the 50th regular meeting of CARICOM heads of government, which officially opened today. Now, the summit's theme is Beyond Words, Action Today for a Thriving Sustainable CARICOM, and it brings together regional leaders to address key issues, including climate resilience, economic integration, and regional security. Now, notably, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is expected to join the discussion, signaling a renewed focus on U.S.-Caribbean relations. In other local news, the former Auditor General, Masu Winspear, has been appointed to assist the Commission of Standards in Public Life in reviewing and updating legislation related to ethics for public officers. Now, this includes politicians, senior civil servants, and members of government, boards, and commissions. The public is invited to participate in the review process through formal submissions to help shape reforms aimed at strengthening accountability across government boards and senior civil service roles. Also, the Ministry of Education and Training is proudly recognizing two exceptional young women as the 2025-2026 Government High School Scholars, celebrating their academic excellence at a formal award ceremony that is held on Thursday, the 12th of February. Now, both recipients, Ms. Cleo Reed and Maria Robinson, are graduates of Clifton Hunter High School, marking a significant achievement for the institution. Chloe Reed, an aspiring actuary, earned an impressive 18 CSEC and WJEC passes, including 15 grade ones, and was named Clifton Hunter's 2025 Student of the Year. She has also been an active in sports, youth parliament, and debate competition, and plans to pursue a degree in actuarial sciences. Miss Maria Robinson, equally accomplished, also achieved an outstanding examination results and will receive the prestigious GHSS Award, which provides $100,000 per year to support studies at a top-ranking university. Now, this recognition not only celebrates the hard work of these two scholars, but it also challenges the narrative that government schools are underperforming. Now, both Clifton Hunter and John Gray High Schools were recently rated as good schools by the Independent Inspectorate, and a testament of the progress is being made in the public education. So there you have it. Congratulations to those two young ladies. And the future, as I said, is looking bright. And that's why every day here, I said, I'm not giving up hope. I still have hope. Turning it over to the Department of Environment. Yes, they are continuing to make waves with its latest discoveries from Beyond the Reef expedition. Now, scientists on board the RRS James Cook have been exploring Cayman's offshore banks, including 12-Mile Bank, 60-Mile, Pickle Bank, and Lawford's Bank, uncovering rich biodiversity and unique marine habitats. Now, thanks to the process called upwelling, nutrient-rich waters are fueling vibrant ecosystems, especially around Pickle and 60-Mile Banks. Now, the data collected will help protect these underwater treasures for generations to come. If you want to know more on this, you go on to doe.ky for more information. Let's turn our headlines now to global, what's making global news today. Former British ambassador to the U.S., Peter Mandelson, has been arrested and released amid ongoing investigation into the alleged misconduct involving the late Jeffrey Epstein. Now, authorities are probing claims that Mandelson passed confidential government information to Epstein, raising serious questions about political accountability in the United Kingdom. Also, today marks the second anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Global leaders are reflecting on ongoing humanitarian crisis and reaffirming support for Ukraine. The conflict has claimed tens of thousands of lives and displaced millions with no clear sight in end. So, Good Samaritan, there is good news out there. Yes, there's a few good news that are making headlines today. In the U.S., a group of bystanders sprang into action to rescue a baby who had accidentally fallen into Lake Michigan. Now, their quick thinking and teamwork saved the child's life, and the story has gone viral as a heartwarming example of everyday heroism. And last, good news, feel good for all of my animal lovers out there. Yes, an abandoned dog found wandering in Las Vegas airport has a new lease on life after being adopted by the very officer who rescued him. Now, the pup, who named Jet, is settling into his new home and has become a symbol of compassion and second chances. So it's not all gloomy all over the world, you know. There is good news out there. That concludes our news updates, making some of the headlines today. That's not all. Otherwise, trust me, I can take 2 hours to do all of that. But it's good to be back here with you this evening. Yes, Andrew is in the house with us today. So good to have you join us as usual. And I appreciate all of your feedback, to be honest with you. You can have the cold weather. I don't like it or want it. No, I'm not all the time. A little bit, but not all the time. Trust me. This winter here, I can honestly say the Cayman Islands really got some cool temperatures this winter. And there were some days that it was really gloomy, and I don't regret it. and it kind of makes you appreciate where we are. But for what you guys in the United States, and especially right now, what New York and some of those other states are facing right now, that they haven't even gotten rid of the thaw from the last 2 storms. Oh, my thoughts and prayers go out for all of you who live in that for a daily basis. I don't think I could deal with it. So kudos to all of you who love that full time. Not me. It's not my style, but it's good to have you. Marshall, kudos to you. I raise my hat to you. Yes, yes, yes. Hey, Harry. Great news. ICE is still in commission and deportations are still taking place. Also, tariffs have been increased, giving future tax breaks to Americans. Yeah, we try to cover it, even though we're here in the Caribbean, in the Cayman Islands, as a small developing states. I make sure that when I do the headlines, I'm not selective. I just make sure to let us know we're still connected, even though we're over here, we're a British Overseas Territory jurisdiction. A lot of these things will impact even us here in the Caribbean, and we're all connected some way, somehow. Alfred Real, good evening to you, my dear. How are you? Good to have you joining us. Good evening, Auntie Sabrina. After watching yesterday's episode, I have a question. Do you see this bill as a one-time historical correction or part of a broader shift in how Cayman defines belonging? I think it's a mixture of two. And that is straight off the cuff because we still have not seen, Alfred Real, the regulations that govern the principal law. Here we have another amendment to an immigration legislation that was amended and passed in 2025 that's not yet commenced, and we still haven't seen the regulations for that piece. But being specific to your direct question, I think it's a mixture of both. I think we are finally taking immigration, I wouldn't say serious, but we have to make some steps in some direction, whether or not it is the right way and how to deal with it, to be honest. Only time will tell. I think that what they were trying to do, as we discussed yesterday, is trying to deal with those persons who felt disenfranchised by their own home country, being born here or having Caymanian ties by born parents. And because of a certain date of their birth, they had to apply to become a belonger, to feel as though they're Caymanian. And this is almost a way of saying, we apologize, we're just going to acknowledge you as Caymanian. In the parameters and based on legal guidance that we have gotten, hopefully, from whomever. We will just have to wait and see, to be honest with you. But I feel it is a mixture of both, Alfred Real, to answer you directly. Only time will tell, because people are disgruntled, and I feel we have dropped the ball with educating and continuing educating our public in why persons being born here after 1977 had to go through a process in the first place. And until we speak about immigration reform, until somebody has to apply for a scholarship and says, I need to prove that you have status or that you have acknowledgement, I need proof that you belong, or they have been given notice by their human resources manager in the organization that they work, and realize your Cayman passport, being born here, is not enough. That is when the conversation then starts. And it is born then out of anger and frustration, because normally the persons that are telling you to prove that you are from here are not from here, like how you came. You see what I'm saying? So it is very emotive. It is something that will always be a national debate. It is something that will always be guarded, protected, almost like you're walking on eggshells for. But I think we failed in continually educating our access to how it came, why we got here, and now we're trying to fix it. We're still fixing it without giving proper narrative as to how we got here, which I feel was lacking. And then you have to hope and pray that your people accept it. And what we're finding out, Alfred Real, is that they hear it, but they're not wholeheartedly accepting. And that is because of decades and decades of just feeling that you are from here, but you're not from here unless you apply for it. So it's going to take, I think we're at a crossroads. I believe we're at a crossroads. And with more forums like this and people voicing their opinions, me being able, and I hope other forums will realize the importance of exactly what we're doing here, that it will be something that will not only be understood, it will be palated, it will be, I guess, for another word, accepted, and that you're not feeling less. And until we get to that point, then we can only just wait, and only time will tell, Alfred. I hope that answers your question. Plain and straight, good to have you here. How are you, my dear? Welcome, welcome, welcome. And good evening to you as well, Annie. Annie, it's good to have you here with us. But there's a lot of healing that has to be done, Alfred Real. And as we see our own, as we see our numbers as generational Caymanians and the percentage overall, which I want to get the latest stats of as to really what that means and what those numbers are, we will get a true sense of really what it is on a national average. Because even in doing this, if this also will help our population numbers go up, asking the real question, Alfred Real, would that solve the problem to say our percentage is then 30% or 40% of the global populace? And I feel the older you speak in having that conversation when it comes to identity and who generational Caymanians are, as what this exercise started out to be, you will realize that unless you include exactly what this law is trying to capture, and even some of those who acquired the status, our numbers will continue to decline. And it all will hinge on who you talk to. And this is why continuous education of this standing is critical, because outside of that, gaps will be filled with one, misinformation and anger. And we don't want that to spill over into who we truly are, when all we're trying to do is protect our identity and trying to find the right balance in that. When it comes to immigration laws, we all have identified it's not static, and it will continuously change based on results. And sometimes that isn't just revealed in one amendment exercise. Some of these exercises will continue for years to come, but you're making a step in the right direction. And as you continue to do that, you continue to lose your seniors. You continue to have your children then marrying into other nationalities, other cultures. You have people just continue to move. And I think what is a harsh reality is that we're seeing that change before our eyes, and we're screaming for legislative reform to try and preserve and save what we have left. So that's my take on exactly where this is born, what it's trying to accomplish. And as our leaders go out on their PR, I'm hoping that some of these questions that you've asked will be asked or will be responded to, and that it meets the satisfaction of the people. The bottom line in trying to touch the sweet spot of everyone who voted for immigration reform and who voted saying we are going to actually deal with this head on as a priority. I'm hoping that you're now satisfied with the outcomes of some of these things that is being put forward. This is why what we're discussing right now is a bill. What we discussed yesterday is a bill. It's not yet a law. And I will continuously repeat, If you do not speak out or speak up, your opportunity is lost. And that would be really, really sad if it is lost. And it is imperative that people really, really speak to their elected representatives. It is. It is really, really, really important that you speak to your elected representatives. And I said that yesterday, that even if your elected representatives is not sitting as a cabinet minister or on the side of the government, every voice in the House of Parliament matters, and they will all have to debate on these bills that are actually being put forward here right now. So I'm hoping that you continue to engage in these discussions. By all means, of course, your questions, I'll be willing to address. However, I cannot speak, and I am not speaking on behalf of the government. We are just here. But I welcome any persons with a legal-minded background that they can go through this and they can see it for what it is. They can weigh in on it. You're all welcome, and there's no dumb question. Please, please, please. So I wouldn't be able, neither would I be in a position to tell you what was in the back of any government's mind or this government's mind when certain things came to fruition in regards to how these bills came in place. And so that is why it's important for you to reach out to your MPs and ask the question. I'm just presenting what is out here into the public's domain. I had a question coming in here by WhatsApp. A friend of mine applied for PR and it was refused. 0 investments. She has stocks and a piece of land not in her name. She is willing to get some more investment and appeal the PR. Do you think they'll consider that after the fact? Does it make sense to have it appealed? Okay, first of all, when you got to understand what an appeal is. An appeal is a review of an application, in this case, that was refused by the Status and Permanent Residency Board. The points that one got, obviously, received less than 110 points for the overall application, including what points your friend got on the history and culture test. If at the time you're saying was refused for 0 investments, she has stocks and a piece of land in her name, she's willing to get some more investments. Now, if you're saying these stocks and land was purchased afterwards, then the purpose of the appeals tribunal is to review what paperwork was before them for them to make their decision to find out if the board, when considering what information was before them at the time, that she was dealt with contrary to the principles of natural justice, at variance with the law, or unreasonable as defined under the Immigration Act, that, she was just not dealt with fairly. Now, if that could be established, that would be considered grounds for an appeal. Right? If you can establish where she was disenfranchised because she'd met all of these things and one or more of those reasons for grounds for establishing that she has justified grounds for an appeal, only thereafter would the appeals tribunal take, as you've stated, further investments into consideration. So, example, if you submitted a PR application, you didn't have property at the time of applying, but when you got the refusal, you went and you bought an investment, and maybe she had these stocks and a piece of land, but combined, they did not meet a minimum threshold of, let's say, 20,000, and she invested more to bring it up after the fact, then no grounds of appeal would possibly be established. And I mean that additional information after the fact would not be taken into consideration because it was after the fact. And when the board was dealing with the application, they didn't have that information before them. So that's in broad terms. Whether or not it makes sense based on what information you've given me, if the additional investments were made after the refusal, the new information was never presented to the board at the time of decision making, so they were unaware that she had additional investments, then, my love, more than likely, there's no grounds for an appeal. That's how I would go there with you. So I'm hoping that that answers your question. Hey, Connie Bonnie. Connie's in the house. Present. Where's Jimbo? Jimbo's quiet. Yes. Barry's in the house as well. American veterans with retirement savings. This is what helps a nation. Keith, hi, how are you? Our children and our grandchildren are depending on us, Caymanians, to protect their future and the future of their children. That's why these immigration laws are very important. You're quite right. And we've been trying, Keith, to get this right for decades. We saw some commentary coming in yesterday. If you want to go political, and I don't want to go political, for God's sakes, let's keep politics out of this. You got an administration and you got them willing to put something forward, just give your feedback as to what the bills are here and just move forward. And it's so right with what Keith is saying here, that it is on us as Caymanians to protect their futures and the future of our children. That's why these immigration laws are very important. And this is why amendments are not static. That's why laws are designed that they can be amended. It just requires political will. The key takeaway, though, Keith, is that public participation and public involvement is also key. And if we do not present ourselves at a certain standard, in a certain way, to educate ourselves, to ask the right questions, the only one we're failing is ourselves. If we jump on social media platforms and cuss this one and cuss that one because they're a part of this party and they're a part of that party, and you're missing the substantive substance of these bills, then what are we doing this for? Keep focus. Let's put all of that good energy into exactly doing what Keith is asking us to do. It is very emotive. I totally understand it. But we have to start somewhere, because for those who are living amongst us that has a plan, that have come here not planning on going home, the legislation is there, the laws are there, and they meet the eligibility requirements, you cannot blame one foreign expatriate for coming here, meeting all the requirements, and making their application. And if you want it to be that rigid where it's almost impossible to reach, then political will. But is that the right approach? Is that a right approach? It's not for me. It's up to you. And that is why your feedback is so critical. Darlene, how are you? So good to have you here. Denver says stocks and land in her name is not completely sole ownership, which it not total ownership. Yeah, that's a little weird in the financial investment side, because there are points that are deemed separately for property versus bank references and stocks and all that sort of stuff, how it's broken down in the point system. So you don't start to get points anyhow for property unless you can demonstrate where you have injected a minimum of $20,000. So there's a lot more questions to be asked here, but whether or not it is actually worth an appeal will hinge on exactly a broad brush of answers. Because if any of these additional requirements have been done after the fact, I don't think you have grounds for an appeal, but that's just based on what you're telling me. And that's not speaking on behalf of the board either. Yeah. So there we have it. It's good to have your feedback and coming in, and the phone lines are open to weigh in. I like the questions that are coming in. Alfred, what do you think about that? Alfred? Hey, just a quick reminder before I go into these fees that I started on yesterday. I want you guys, are you seeing this? I need to give you guys a gentle reminder that the Department of Vehicle and Driver's License is reminding us that this enforcement of the e-bikes and scooters begins on March 1st. Now, this ride legally, to ride these apparatus legally on our roads, you must be 17, you must hold a category 0 or 2 license, you must have insurance, you must be registered and licensed, and obey all traffic signs and signals. So right now, from what I'm seeing, and this is also on the ministry's Facebook page, is that insurance is available to through Indigo and Saxon Insurance for compliant devices. So from March 1st. So you can't say you don't know. We just want to give you a brief update on this and a gentle reminder as well. So if you guys are operating these types of devices on the road, this is not one, at least not yet, that has been drawn back. This is still going forward and comes into effect as of March 1st. So there you have it. Also, another which was shared with me as well, and I'm just going to keep it real because you need to know. The PPM, the Progressives Movement, is kicking off a listening tour, and that starts on Tuesday, March the 3rd at the Constitutional Hall. That's out in town, known as Town Hall. And, they're inviting people out there to do that. So please, 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 everyone, please be reminded. If it's shared with me, I'll let you know. I'm not going to take sides at all because we want to make sure you all are aware. But for all of you just joining us, good evening and welcome to this episode of Sabrina Speaks, where we keep the conversation bold, live, and real. And right now, of course, it's making headlines again. The talk is all about immigration and the new fees that are all out. We took a deep dive yesterday into Immigration Transition Amendment Bill of 2026. And that was aimed at retroactively validating express fees that were collected by WORC that until now were not legally authorized. And I got a caller who questioned me on that. And I knew it was coming up at the end, but I played fool to catch wise because I wanted to cover all the other bits first. But excellent questions that came in. And we had explored exactly what that means and why it matters and the kind of precedent that could also set. Can you imagine? So the feedback from you, our listeners, I want to thank you. It has been very thoughtful. And also it's deeply important based on the feedback that I'm getting. And if you're getting a chance if you didn't get that chance to weigh in yesterday, of course, by all means, the conversation continues today. And I want you to know that you're more than welcome to call in tonight and share your thoughts on what you think of this. Now, direct questions, I am just presenting the bill to you. Direct questions, we can hash it out here, give your thoughts, give your feedback. My opinion in this space doesn't matter. Based on my 30 years experience of dealing with immigration law, I'm not declaring myself as an attorney either, but I do have under the immigration law permission to actually practice immigration law from a consultancy level. That by no means makes me an expert, but I know a thing or five about it. So, but this is why your feedback helps. Different perspectives really matter. And the conversation that I'm actually pitching here this evening is just sending a loud statement that the conversation is still open and your voice definitely matters. So what I went into yesterday as well, just before the end of the show, is that I started to put the spotlight on another bill that is out for public consultation, and that is the Immigration Transition Fees Regulations of 2026, because some of the fees that you are actually paying right now, should this bill be passed, there are going to be some significant changes in some cases in the filing fees. And one of the focuses is on restructuring of the immigration application fees. Now, it is not the work permit fees themselves. So if you're a domestic helper and you have a domestic helper work permit, for example, that $150 will not change. What will change, though, is the filing fee, okay? And the work permit fees themselves will not change, but the cost associated with submitting the application. And the government said that the reason behind this is about modernizing the system that has been not been updated in over 15 years. But for many of you, and I'm hearing it, the question is, will these changes help or hurt? And are they fair is another question that I got. And who will feel the impact the most? So again, the mic is yours. The phone lines are open, 345-936-8255. because your voice matters, your feedback also matters, and I'm taking WhatsApp messages on that call as well. So let's get into it. As I said, I started this last night, and this is the Immigration Transition Fees Regulations of 2026. And pretty much what this is a draft release that our government has put out there in the public's domain, and it's a part of a broader immigration reform effort, and it is now open for public feedback until March 5th. Okay, so you have until March 5th to weigh in on this document that we are presenting here tonight. So if you wanted to find out exactly what is changing for some of these things, and if you notice the watermark on this, as I said, it is a draft because it's being discussed still. And like I said earlier on, it is important that to know and to just highlight it now, because I know some people were saying, oh, we're going to have to jack up our prices because this is going to change, that's going to change. The work permit fees themselves are not going to change. And that's important, because what you pay once approved stays the same. Well, in this case, the filing fee, the work permit fee, those are paid up front, right? The only thing is changing is the submission fee, okay? The application fees. So what that means is that they're restructuring them into a tiered system, and some of these filing fees are going to be based on like the income as well. So according to the Ministry of Caymanian Employment and Immigration, they are doing this because this has not been done in 15 years. And they say that it is necessary, that ministry says that it's necessary to do this to actually reflect the growth in population. They say that it's important for them to do this as well to address the increased demand for public services and infrastructure, and also to ensure that immigration systems is financially suitable and sustainable and efficient. Now, when we look at all of that, you may say, well, what does that do for me as a small business, right? Because there is a schedule of fees which outlines, and it's here on this document, that it outlines all of these fees that is shown here on the screen. And it shows different fees and for different work permits and dependents and so forth. I went through this very, very quickly yesterday for you because I had the time. But today, the key ones that are changing are the submission fees. The submission fees are really what is being changed, because what you have here right now on the screen is that you're seeing where now the filing fee, the submission fees, right? For WORC, for the right to be Caymanian if you're the age of 18. Now that particular application, you may have had or brought a child or children into the country, let's say at age 12, 13, 14, whatever the age was, and they got acknowledgement then those days for $50, right? But they reached the age of 18 before having that status for a minimum of 7 years. So for them to continue, their continuation after reaching the age of 18 then is an application that has to go to the board. That filing fee used to be $250, right? For the continuation thereof, because it has to go to the board. That $250 as being proposed now is going to go to $1,000, right? And if it is approved, that approval fee that used to be $1,000 remains for this specific application. Remember, Caymanian status straight across the board, once granted, be it on the grounds of marriage, descent, naturalization, used to always attract a filing fee that was set, okay? Was set to $250 with an approval fee of $1,000, right? No, $500. I stand to be corrected. So much numbers now. Let me go here, 2024. Yeah. So there are a lot of these fees now that are going to be increased. And you will see where even the Immigration Appeals Tribunal, like what my WhatsApp message came in, if this person now, let's say this goes in and it's approved, if this person wanted to appeal and let's say this law is passed, the filing fee is going to be now changed to $3,000 just to submit an immigration appeal, if it is passed. Okay. So some of these fees are some of them have doubled, some of them has quadrupled. And it is important that you know exactly what's to come. But the good thing is that our leaders are giving you an opportunity to weigh in on them. And this is why it is important for your feedback. And don't think that it doesn't matter, because the mere fact that the public engagement has yielded to the slow down implementation of certain things, even though some of you are saying it's after the fact, because you were calling for it to be slowed down from the first place, unintended consequences, for whatever the reason is, thank God that it's slowed down and you are invited. What you don't want to happen is that the slowdown of implementation, be it for feedback from the chamber, members of civil society, or they just had a rude awakening that there was a lot happening at one same time, or maybe operational systems within the civil service were not capable of dealing with some of these changes in the time frame that which they were supposed to be in. But whatever the reason is, it could be a combination of all of these reasons. What really matters is that there is a window now for you to actually participate and give your feedback. And even though this is one of the two regulations that we are asked to weigh in on, the big regulations that people are asking for is the other one that says, or the operational arm that governs how long you would have to be married before you're eligible for Caymanian status through marriage. What is the operational arm for naturalization and that sort of stuff? That was the one that I think people is really waiting for. And that is now, we haven't seen that, but we have seen the one now that governs fees. So to say that this is fair, because we still don't know, it hasn't been made public yet as to when the implementation of the 2025 amendment is going to take effect. We just have to wait and see. But a lot of what is included here on this is the status on the grounds of dissent. We see here is nil on the page 5. So the application on the grounds of dissent, so that's grounds of dissent as status. If you are the parent, if you're the child of someone who's a parent that was born in the island, parent or grandparent born in the islands, but you're an adult over 18, that application for Caymanian status, as long as you can prove the link to that Caymanian, goes to the board. And that application now is now free. There is no filing fee based on what is proposed here. And there's also no approval fee. All you have to do, and the process in which for this now, because this is only fees, it is not telling you what will accompany that application. This is just discussing the fees. So we're not sure if you're going to be subjected to a police record. We're not sure if you're going to be subjected to a medical. We're not sure if you're going to be subjected to 3-character references. In some cases, they even ask for a job letter for some applications, but this is nil, okay? Their primary focus is going to be on an official application with a cover letter declaring the regular stuff and proof of connection to that Caymanian parent or grandparent. The due diligence is asked. But the key is, because it's centered around the fees, is that it's nil. And even once the board approves it, it's still zero. So there's no revenue for applying for Caymanian status on the grounds of descent as proposed here. Actually, the application for acknowledgement as of right to be Caymanian. Remember yesterday we discussed the definition of anyone who was born here. Let me pull that up. I'll go back to this for those of you who may have missed that because of what the law is saying. It was asking for, where is it? The definition of Caymanian, who was born here. Where is that? Oops. Yeah, they were asking to define anyone who was born here, where it amends and provides the categories of persons who are Caymanian as of right. The effect of the amendment is now to insert a new category of persons born in the islands on or before the 26th of March, 1977. And, and the existing categories in the Principal Act remain. So that's one of those sections that is asking to define. And then there are some who were born after 2004, where it proves that one parent had to be domiciled in the islands at the time of the birth. So these are some of those now that they are actually trying to amend. And that, going back to these fees now, is what will attract a nil fee. Hence, Real Alfred asking that question as to whether or not we think it's a change in course, a different time, or just, only time will tell on that one, right? Then we see here on these fees where applications for the right to be Caymanian on the grounds of naturalization. So we all know that persons who have been living here in the jurisdiction for 15 years can apply for status on the grounds of naturalization. It's either you've been living here been naturalized and been living here for a total of 15 years, or naturalized for 5, whichever comes earlier. That filing fee now has gone to $1,000 as proposed. And if it is approved on the grounds of naturalization, under this new bill, it's saying you're going to have to pay $5,000. Bearing in mind, this has gone up by $4,000. Okay. The application for the right to be Caymanian on the grounds of marriage to a Caymanian, the filing fee alone, which is currently $250, is now $500. And if it is granted on the grounds of marriage, it's gone from $1,000 to $2,000. So that on the grounds of marriage has gone up by $1,000. I'd like you to weigh in on this. Do you think that will deter the amount of sham marriages? What impacts do you feel it would have on your household? And bearing in mind what was presented, if not amended by the time we see it, is that the eligibility for this now was being proposed that you wouldn't be eligible to apply for this until you are actually been married for 20 years. And after 20 years, they're saying that this then will go up by $2,000. So, transitional clauses comes important. We know what it is now. Just predicting the future. What if other governments come in now and say, no, we're going to make it tougher. We're going to make it harder. If you grant it under this section, would this continue to increase? You're already waiting for 20 odd years. So I'm just letting you know what's being proposed. Now you have also the surviving spouse. The application for the right to be Caymanian in respect of a surviving spouse of a Caymanian is $250. And if that is approved on page 5, it shows here that that now remains at $1,000. So that has not increased. Those fees remain the same. Should you get your status approved and your Caymanian spouse under the current law dies and you haven't had it for more than 3 years, you automatically lose the status. Okay. And then for you to continue that status, within 90 days, you report the death tell them that there has been a change in your immigration status. You've not been the holder of the status for more than 3 years before your husband's or wife's death, and you want to apply for it as a surviving spouse of a deceased Caymanian. That application now will attract a $250 filing fee and a $1,000 fee if it is approved. So there's a number of steps there in your grieving time. Somebody has to remember that and do that. It has happened where that's the last thing on person's mind should they lose their partner and they miss that. And I must say, with all accounts and exchange that I've had with the boards, they have been quite lenient and actually have not put down the hammer too hard on anyone who have found themselves in this position. There was a case that I could recall. It went almost 9-10 years. That was just unreasonable because after discussions, they knew that they had a responsibility. And to be honest with you, that didn't end very well at all. No. And I'll leave that right there. But yeah, on to other application fees. Now we're seeing where, there's an annual declaration that is now being proposed as well for persons who are granted Caymanian status. If the 2025 bill that was passed and the regulations now come out, it is expected that those persons who are even granted status they now have to apply for an annual declaration that will actually declare whether there has been a change in circumstances since their approval. That filing of that annual declaration is $100. So that's what that is. So before what had happened is that was only applicable to persons of permanent residence, annual declaration of independent means, and I think substantial business presence. This is now going also to persons who are granted status, but under the 2025 law. Good evening, caller. You're live on Sabrina Speaks. What's on your mind? You going to do a mic drop on me today?
No, not today.
See, I get to know you.
I'm saving that. I'm saving that for Christmas.
Oh, okay. What's on your mind, my dear?
I was kind of doing something, but when you said if a man marries a woman or a woman marries a man, let's say it's a man, Caymanian, marries a woman, let's say American, they would have to wait 20 years.
That's what is proposed. That's what is proposed under the new law. But that's only if you got married after that law came in effect.
Wait.
I think I lost you there for a second.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm moving around.
Yeah.
I said, what is the law currently?
The law currently is that you only have to be married for 7 years.
Okay.
So, but that's any marriage that takes place between now and before this new law comes into effect, because they were saying it was too easy to get Caymanian status on the grounds of marriage. They were finding a lot of frivolous marriage, sham marriages, marriage of convenience, whatever you want to label it as. And they felt that this was a way to deter it, because what had happened was persons were marrying Caymanians and getting the employment rights certificate. And through that employment rights certificate, without even getting status, that would allow those individuals to apply to be naturalized and then eventually acquire a Cayman passport and then UK citizenship and UK passport. And then what would happen in some cases, they would go MIA, go to some other country, sometimes the UK, or it was easier to get a US visa with a Cayman travel document or a British passport, and they wouldn't be seen. I think this is a way of trying to penalize those, but now we're seeing where the innocent is suffering for the guilty. And there has been a lot of talk around that. Now, despite all of that, that law was changed. It's just not come into effect as yet.
Understood. Okay. So I might be wrong, but it seems like who wants to build a better mousetrap kind of thing. And it's all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Melania Trump has an Einstein visa. I don't think she can add 7 plus 5 in her head.
Mm-hmm.
It happens here. It happens in Russia. It happens everywhere. There will always be exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
The politically connected, the rich, the beautiful, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
See, I was with a woman for 14 years. She's from Jamaica originally. We have 2 children together. And it's a long story, but we need, we're the best of friends still, but we actually have to get married for one of our daughter's sakes.
You have to get married for one of your
Well,
daughter's sake.
Yeah, it has to do with DNA and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. You listened to yesterday.
Yeah.
You don't have to get married once you
So,
can prove that you're the biological father.
well, that's it. I'm not the biological father. That's where the DNA comes in.
Oh, so you're going to
I
adopt the
thought I
kid?
was.
You're going to adopt the kid?
I can't adopt a 36-year-old woman.
Okay, let me make you talk. Go
The
ahead. Go
cutoff
ahead.
is-
Go ahead. Give me the story.
Well, the cutoff for adoption is 18.
18.
So I can't legally adopt her.
Yeah.
So I can't legally adopt her. All these years, she's thought I was her father, and I thought I was her. She's thought I was her father, and I thought she was my daughter. But
Mhm.
biologically,
Mm-hmm.
DNA-wise, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no ill feelings. I really don't. I'm not somebody that harbors bitterness and all these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
A piece of paper that says our DNA doesn't match means nothing to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still her dad, and she's still my daughter, and we love and respect one another as such. But since our DNA doesn't match, the mother and I have to legally get married
Why?
so that she can leave the United States.
Oh,
We have to get legally married because once we get legally married, then by extension, this daughter, who I am not the DNA provider of, well, she's obviously the DNA provider because she came out of her body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But my daughter, my 36-year-old daughter, is incredibly bright, incredibly successful, incredibly beautiful, makes a ton of money doing what she does, and she would make even more here. But it has to do with the state of affairs in the United States, why she wants to leave. My 2 oldest daughters are rich. They don't care. My other daughter lives in China. She don't care. But this one does. And she wants to leave. Her and her little 5-year-old daughter, my granddaughter, want to come here. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, my last name is Ebanks.
Mm-hmm.
1 out of every 3 people that work in the government. I mean, 1 of every 3 people that work in the Cayman Islands works for the government. 1 out of every 3. I would say probably 25 to 30% of them
Mm-hmm.
are related to me by blood or by marriage. So I can turn little magic things and buy somebody a beer, and that's it. It's done. But I don't like to do those kind of things. I think that's playing dirty.
No, that does not happen here. We
That's-
have more integrity than that, but continue with your story.
Well, I have a close family member who is a police officer and making whatever, but nobody thinks twice that he owns a $20 million house.
Mm-hmm. And where are
It's
you
kinda
going? Where are you going with the daughter that you thought is yours and your granddaughter that's not biologically yours?
I'm saying, if I buy somebody a sandwich, it could all be done. But I want to play by the rules. I have some degree of integrity. believe it or not.
Yeah.
And there will always be a loophole somehow, some way. And the majority of people are going to have to suffer the consequences. But there will always be the beautiful, rich, powerful, whatever, that's totally unaffected by this. You see, I was just reading an article before I came on about cryptocurrency. Cayman Islands is number 8 in the world. Hedge funds are number 1 in the world. In the world, there are people who have money that come here and want to be here, and nothing's going to stop them. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they got money. End of conversation.
Okay. And
You remember? I think you remember my first call where I said I've been around the world, but nothing has ever happened to me
until you
till I
came
came
here
to
and
the
your
Cayman
own
Islands.
family, yeah, and that they stole from you.
Robbed me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what exists here. You see, a lot of
You know
people
that doesn't give us a
in
good
this.
reflection from a public space. And just let me remind you, you are live and this is a podcast. And just like what you said, as a small island development state, everyone knows everybody. Everybody is in some way will connect the dots. I'm just cautioning you that you are sharing this with the world.
Well, a long time ago, my mother. No, it wasn't my mother. It was my first boss. I was 13 years old. He said, "Roy, mean what you say and say what you mean,
Yeah.
but don't say it mean."
Mm-hmm. I got you.
So I try to do that. I try to do that.
I'm just making, for all
Oh.
intents and purposes, that I'm making it clear that you are live.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that's the second or third. I heard you the first time.
Okay.
Anyway, it's just like people don't want to look at the underbelly.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't want to look. I remember my first time I participated in the what's it called? The census.
Mm-hmm.
It was the 10-10-10. It was the 10-10-10 status,
Mm-hmm.
2010. And we were given certain rules. We could not report that there was homelessness.
Yeah. It's true.
When Hurricane Ivan hit, a particular politician didn't want the world to know how devastated this island was.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dark side to everything.
Yep. I'm not denying it.
And I've been there. Got the t-shirt. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. There you go. I'd like to hear from more of you. 345-936-8255. The number, the line is open for more. And I love it when that caller calls, the mysterious voice who leaves. He didn't mic drop today, but he just dropped a few nuggets there, whether or not we want to accept it or not. And I have a duty here. I go there. But I've heard it's been alleged exactly read between the lines has become a reality. And they said that their threats are within and their threats externally. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Sabrina Speaks. You're live.
Good evening, Sabrina. It's good to have you back. But I understand you caught a lot of flack for going away for a short time. Is that true?
Yeah, off air. Yes. I didn't go anywhere, though I was here. And now that's why you got the best of me. You now have the best of me.
You have now become a drug to some people. They can't do without you. So.
What a mess. How are you, sir? What's on your mind?
I'm good. Well, just trying to see if I can continue digesting the new draft legislation which has been put out. I haven't read it in great detail, but I did listen to the minister when he talked about it on another show.
Mm-hmm.
I think he said something about how some people who were born like before a certain date in 1977 should not require to be acknowledged.
That's automatic.
That seems to be something that has been a need for some time.
Mm-hmm.
But he also said something about a I don't know if I'm mixing two issues. He said something about certain people who are applying for status that we need to grandfather in them as well. So I wasn't quite sure whether he was talking about these people or whether it was some lacuna that did. Yeah.
Oh, it was saying what this bill is proposing is that any applications and all grants, exactly what we were advocating here for, to be clear, that they would be grandfathered in, that should and when the 2025 Immigration Amendment Transitional Act that was passed in December, when that does come in effect, that it wouldn't have any bearing on any applications that were approved under the old law and any applications that is pending. And it didn't only limit status, it went through permanent residents of independent means, PR, naturalization, those who are waiting also for asylum. Let's say you're here on a permission to remain, reside, work, or go to school while a pending application. There's a number of applications, any immigration appeals, that sort of stuff. Those applications are protected. Now, until a decision has been made, if you're approved, you're good. If you're not approved, then those new provisions, the old law does not kick in. The new law will kick in. So RERC, independent means, BOTCs, adding a dependent on someone, RERC, remain to leave, reside on the CBC because you're waiting for, let's say, a student visa or something like that. Anything that's in process right now, you're protected, is what is being said. And anything that was granted under any earlier law, including Caymanian status on the grounds of marriage, acknowledgement, descent, entitlement, whatever, those are all protected.
So in other words, in addition to those grandfathered people who were already grandfathered in the original draft, they are just extending this to some of these other smaller categories.
Yes. That's my understanding, subject to change when they present it.
Well, it does sound like, I mean, the way you are explaining it, it seems to be like adding up with what my suspicions were and certain things and so on. But anyway, we'll see what's going to happen. And then, of course, they talk about, the fees, that apparently they messed up about the fees because they are saying that the fees, there are some fees to be validated.
Yes. Under the Validation Act of, I'm going to share the link. 1 second, Jimbo.
Okay.
It said under the validation clause, is it that one? I think I'm pulling up the wrong one here. Oh, hold on. The validation one, it says that all fees that were actually collected or had been charged for express fees, that there was nothing under the validation. Says the payment of express fees and the charge and collection of express fees by Director of Work without statutory authority for expedited services provided under the Principal Act prior to the commencement of Section 3 and 4 of this Amendment and Validation Act are validated and considered lawfully charged by, paid and collected by the Director of WORC. And if the Director of WORC was empowered under the Principal Act as amended by the Amending and Validating Act to charge and collect those express fees. And then that went on, then it says, orders or determinations by the court not affected. That was Section 6 does not affect any order or determination made by a court with respect to express fees charged by, paid to, or collected by the Director of Work without statutory authority for expedited services provided under the Principal Act prior to the commencement of Sections 3 and 4 of this Amending and Validation Act. So,
okay, let me say something about those fees, and then I want to go back to the grandfathering thing because something else has just come into my mind.
Go ahead.
Now, first of all, they are admitting that they collected these fees illegally, that they had no legal authority to collect them. Now, how does that happen in a government like Cayman? I mean, one of the laws that is very clear in Cayman and elsewhere is you don't collect money without statutory authority. I remember many years ago, 25 years ago or so, when I used to be in the Virgin Islands for a couple of years, there was a radio announcer who won a case because they asked him to pay like $1 for importing a dog, and he said, you don't have statutory authority. And he was able to go to court and recover his $1 because the court said there was no statutory authority. You mean in Cayman, we've been collecting fees without statutory authority? Somebody didn't know that for years?
But could it have been
I mean,
in the form of a policy? You have worked in a department. You see where policies are actually implemented. Could that, for devil's advocate, have been one of the cases here?
Well, yeah, they are not entitled to collect money on the basis of a policy because, again, there's a lot of case law which says that a policy or even a resolution of the Legislative Assembly that is not a law, and therefore you cannot collect money without legislation. I don't know how they did this for such a long time. To me, I think it's a sign of really serious incompetence. And apparently, this was going on for a number of years because from the way they are putting it, like they've collected all this money without statutory authority. So I would just make this point as a sign that somebody was falling asleep on their job. But let me go back to the transitional issue. Now, before the supplementary changes were announced, there was already, I think, in the main bill, some grandfathering provisions.
Mm-hmm.
Because those grandfathering provisions, yes, some of them, yes, did cover if you've already applied, if you are going through judicial review and so on. But there was also a provision, I think it's in clause 25, which was like a more generalized grandfathering provision in that it says, if you are already in Cayman, by the time this law comes into effect, the new period of time doesn't apply to you, whether it is for PR, for status. And I thought that was clarified by, first of all, it was announced initially by the Premier and the Deputy Governor way back a few months ago. And then I watched the Deputy Governor again on another show. They asked him, they said, well, is this what you mean to do? He said, yes, because everybody's period of time, like those people who are already in government now, the period of time they've been in government or even in the private sector doesn't apply. So their period of time will start counting from when this law comes into effect. So they will be able to apply at the end of 8 years. Okay? And on top of that, the Premier again reiterated that in another show. So this grandfathering provision, they have really misled people more by active concealment. The truth of the matter, at the moment, what it means, I know that the ones that you've explained, yes, there are some small little classifications like which were left out. And then I understand that, although again, I've got a comment about how things like that should be left out. The truth of the matter is, for now, if you, for example, come to Cayman and start working in the public sector or the private sector in February 2026, okay?
Yeah.
If you come at that time, it means you can apply for PR in February 2034. And still the old law will apply to you in 2034 when you apply. And also then for status, if you came to Cayman in February, when the new law comes into effect, it won't apply to you. You can still apply for status in February 2041 and still apply under the old law. That is what the government has not fully explained to people.
Well,
yes, when they go...
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what the government has not explained fully to people, because they are saying, oh, your period will start applying when the new law comes into effect. But they haven't told people exactly what that means. Okay? What it means is that these tough new provisions about 20 years for starters and 9 years for PR will not catch anybody until starting 2034 and 2041. And the question that you have to ask is, how many statuses are you going to have to give under the old law by the time these new provisions come into effect?
Because we still don't know how much is pending. And remember, they're now being declared as being protected.
Well, yeah. And because everybody is protected now, even those who haven't applied yet, and even those who anybody who is in Cayman today is protected, is going to be grandfathered in. Everybody is being grandfathered in so long as you are already in Cayman and you started your tenure in Cayman before this law comes into effect. And effectively, therefore, they haven't done anything at the moment. The chances are that since the population of Cayman has been increasing, at the very least, the number of status grants, PR grants, is not going to go down. If anything, keep going up, because you see, it tends to go up in proportion to the increase in population. Okay? Now, I was listening to, I quote him because I double-checked him, Steve McField on the other show. And he said, and he's now, he's chairman, he has been for some time, chairman of the Immigration Appeals Tribunal. So he should be party to a number of statistics that we don't all have. He said that the increase of population among Caymanians is 1.5% per year. 1.5% per year. The increase of population among expatriates is 2.75% per year. Okay, so it is more than, it is up almost twice. So if that is the case, and he was asked a question, if that is indeed the case, which it is, where is Cayman going to be in terms of the proportion of Caymanians of right and the rest? And what I was disappointed, even on that show, despite the distinguished people who were there, when I sent in a question, I said, do you believe that this current immigration law is going to address these issues? None of them gave me a straight answer.
Wow.
So what in my view the government is doing is they are concentrating on these. I'm not saying that these things shouldn't be done, but they now look like almost like they are the important things, the fees and those kinds of things. Those things are not changing what people want. Let me show you one of the problems that I have with the way sometimes Cayman handles these matters. Instead of dealing with the fundamental issue, and I've just tried to put forward what I think is the fundamental issue, they now want to deal with fees. For example, you talked a little earlier on about how I think it is the document you have to get in order to get status through your wife is now has gone up by 2,000.
Yeah, it's increased. That application fee what is being proposed for the fees is that now on the grounds of marriage will actually be $2,000.
And it was very little before that.
$1,000. It went up by 100%.
Yeah. You see, to me, you are just you are trying. First of all, okay, they think that this sort of thing would discourage people from getting married. I don't think so. I think it just inconveniences people. Okay, and there's this assumption which apparently this law has had, which is that they are assuming more or less that everybody or half the people who get married in Cayman, get married to a Caymanian, are necessarily involved in a marriage of convenience, in a sham marriage. That's not so. The overwhelming number of those marriages, I believe, are genuine. Okay, some of them marriages because of economic advantage, yes, but that happens anywhere. It's not just in Cayman. Okay, but to try and put up fees like this in the hope that it will sort of help to discourage these marriages is total nonsense. Yeah. You see, look at for example, PR fees now. The PR fees are not charged in any jurisdiction I'm aware of. I imagine there might be a country or so other than Cayman where PR fees are charged. But at least we can say safely that generally speaking, in most countries, PR fees are not charged. But that said, I have no problem with the PR fees being charged in Cayman because I appreciate that Cayman is a kind of special place. People preserve it for future generations so that there's not too much of a quick cultural change. So even if it doesn't happen elsewhere, I won't say therefore it shouldn't happen in Cayman. I think that PR fees are fine. But at the end of the day, once you grant PR fees, you remember some time back, you remember this since you were in practice. I think at one time, if you didn't have a job, you didn't pay PR fees. Wasn't there a time like that?
You were still expected to pay the fee, even though you were granted it with the right to work. There was not enough enforcement to determine whether or not you were working or not once it was approved. Okay. There were persons who made presentations or submissions to the board to say, I'm taking sabbatical for a year or whatever happened. I can't find a job that aligns with my credentials, and as such, you are sending me, I can't meet the conditions of my approval. Can I take a hiatus? And there was no provisions under the law for that gray area. You understand? So a lot of persons were that, to the best of my knowledge, you were still expected to pay in accordance to law. But there were no gray areas in the law.
Was it like initially when the PR fees were introduced, wasn't it that you only paid if you were working? Is that so?
No. Once that was approved, you were expected to pay on the anniversary. Now, you had a lot of persons that became delinquent, and here again, for the lack thereof of enforcement matters and having to go through the process of reaching out, giving you and offering you time, getting some sort of explanation from you, offering you a payment plan. If you faltered on that, then it went up to the board for recommendations based on what the board say, following due process in accordance to law, when in fact your PR was approved with the right to work, and that came with the condition. It didn't give you if, ands, or buts. If you fail to pay your annual fee, people are saying it should be up for revocation because that's loss of government revenue, and you've already been free of immigration control. When it comes to work permits, at least pay your fee that was applicable either by you, the holder, or your employer. So the intent and purpose of the law is that it was to be paid, and that was it. If you became delinquent, then there were grounds for revocation.
I know a person whose name I won't call, very well-educated person. I won't even mention his profession because people can start narrowing down categories. He worked for a certain company. That company, in the end, merged or folded. They gave options for people to get packages. He opted for a package, bought a house, and got himself a new Caymanian wife. He had PR. But then now he couldn't get a job. He couldn't get a job, and I couldn't believe it. He couldn't get a job. But meanwhile, his PR fees were increasing. Until they got to a point where they said, "Well, we now show cause why we shouldn't revoke your." And then he came to see me and he said, well, can they do this? And I told him, I said, well, in the law, that's what it says. It says that it says that if you don't, whether you are working or not, you have to pay. Now, I told him, I thought that this is unfair because how do you expect me to pay if I'm not working? I mean, but
who's there to police you? Who's there to police that you're not working? And that's where the innocent suffering for the guilty, just like the 20-year wait now for status on the grounds of marriage. There's no one there to prove that you're not working is what was behind immigration's mind.
Yeah, I personally consider it to be unfair to tell somebody, we have given you status, we have given you PR, you are here now, and you have to pay PR fees. And then this person might be able to show that They are responsible. They have looked for work. Like this guy really looked for work, and he didn't get a job. But you still say you have to pay. You know what that sounds to me like, Sabrina? It sounds like we gave you status, but we are not. We
PR.
gave you PR, but we are not. We are not very happy to give you PR. So we'll put in a spanner in your works to ensure that we can revoke it. In other words, we are giving you this through the front door, but we can take you out through the back door.
But then
I just don't think that that's fair.
those fees come to an abrupt end once you acquire Caymanian status. And if it is through the 8-year PR process, once you get prove that you've been living here for a total of 15 years and naturalize and get your status, then those fees fall away. It is all it's doing is saying you're a permanent resident. You are free to work for any employer in a specific category. You don't have to apply for a work permit anymore. And until you reach that 15-year threshold to apply for status or be the holder of naturalization for 5 years, whichever happens first, or even if you're a PR with the right to work and during that time, less than 15 years, you find and you fall in love with a Caymanian, then you change your immigration status. You understand? So there's so much anomalies to that. I don't think at the time in which that was implemented, where fees are concerned, that it was ever envisaged that if somebody had the right to work, didn't have to go through the work permit process, that those fees were borne on either the holder of the PR or the employer, or some of them met both ways, half and half.
To me, Sabrina, whether it is the employer to pay or whether it will be the person to pay, okay, ask yourself, what are you paying for? Then when you pay for a work permit, you are paying for a work permit.
The right to work in that specific category, and the luxury of not having to compete for a work permit by a board. And you could be indirectly competing with a Caymanian that could do your job, but you've also secured your tenure here. And you've doubled for a fee. I guess it's indirect tax if you want to look at it.
Yeah, so the fact that I have that opportunity to have to work without having to get a work permit, that's what I'm paying for.
That's what you're paying, that freedom, because remember, before you got permanent residence with the right to work, you were here in this country able to live, remain, and reside, work. For one specific employer, unless your work permit had multiple employers. Once you are, once you have been granted PR, then what happens is that you are then given the opportunity to be employed with multiple employers, but only be in that specific category of work as approved by the board.
And
I've added somebody else to the call.
Yeah, okay. And I understand that, but let me, I think you've explained like what the thinking was, but I just happen to think that if I get PR and I get that through those privileges, but then I can't get a job and I'm working diligently for it, but you tell me you still have to pay money, then where do you expect me to get the money from?
You have the right, have the right to communicate to the board, and maybe the option is there for you to also request a variation. But normally, remember, when these PRs are granted, they're granted subject to you maintaining property, same or greater value, and actually remain to work in the same category of occupation, unless changed by way of a variation. Just let me welcome the other caller to the call. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm sorry. I felt compelled to call in. I strongly disagree with what your other caller is stating.
He's still on the line.
Yes, I know.
Okay,
I know.
yes, yeah, but go ahead.
I think that it's fair. Well, you just pointed out one of the things that the grounds on which PR is approved is based on what you put in on that form at that time. There's also an annual declaration that is required by law to be completed each year when you pay your fees. And that is informing WORC of the conditions of your property, employment, and whatnot. Just imagine, right, the scams that would occur if an easy way out of paying annual fees to our government could be waived in the event of unemployment. It's much easier to say I'm unemployed than it is to perhaps necessarily prove that I'm employed.
Mhm.
And you can do whatever you want and say I'm not full-time working or whatever. And people who are applying for PR have to be mindful of the fact that you are applying to have residency in this country and taking on that responsibility. There is a risk factor that you may become unemployed at some point, but that's not our government's problem. I'm sorry, that may sound harsh.
Mhm.
That is not my government's problem. If that situation presents itself to you, that is also no different than a hardship that faces my local people. All right. And we have to figure it out. Now, if those hard times fall upon you, you have options, like you stated a while ago, conveying all of that, communicating to WORC what your situation is, and you can then request to have to cancel your RERC. There are provisions for that as well. But let's not even entertain the thought of saying, I don't have a job. Where am I supposed to get the money from to pay my PR fee?
Mhm.
That's not my government's problem.
It was
That
hard
is a
and fast.
responsibility that comes.
Yeah.
Well,
There's countries that pay government, that you have to pay property tax. When you're unemployed and you can't pay that property tax anymore to that government, they're not waiving your fee and saying, oh, okay, sorry that you're in this hardship. You don't have to pay that fee anymore. You have to pay it, right? And once again, when you apply for PR in my country, that is the risk that you take, that if this happens to you, these are the circumstances that you may be in. But be mindful that if it does happen, those fees are still
Applicable
by my government, because you have been granted the privilege to be a resident in this country. Thank you very much. I look.
Thank you, caller. Okay, go ahead.
Let me just respond to that. I approach this first of all from the perspective that in most countries you don't pay PR fees anyway, because once you get permanence, what are you paying for? You did say that you are paying for the privilege and so on and so forth, but what if that privilege is not yielding anything for me? I am there and I'm applying for jobs, 20 applications per day, and I can't get a job, but you still say that you have to pay. I just think that is a question of principle. That's a problem. Let me draw an analogy.
But the principle from the Caymanian perspective, Mr. Balika, is that if it is not working out for you, you have a choice to leave. But the terms and conditions of the approval, which is clearly outlined in the license, that you're subjected to pay a fee. And they didn't say, if you're not working, then we'll give you a bly. And I feel that's the point the last caller was trying to say. It's hard and fast.
Yeah, then I think even then the description, then you are not a permanent resident in any way. You are just a glorified work permit holder, okay? Because for me, let me tell you from a legal perspective what I think of that. There are EU directives which say that you should give somebody permanence after 10 years, okay? And those are the ones which the UK took into account and the Cayman took into account to say, okay, you have to get status by 8 or 9. At 10, you have to leave because otherwise you get those rights, okay? In my view, if you say that we have given you permanence, but if you can't if you don't pay permanent residency fees without any fault of your own, we can remove that permanent residency. To me, I would argue that as a matter of law, that is not permanent residency. It's just a glorified work permit provision, and that does not amount to permanency. But let me move to that because I was trying to make a broader point.
Go ahead.
The broader point I'm trying to make is that sometimes we try to make these laws to complicate people's lives because we are not happy that so many people are getting PR. The issue should be really to deal with the fundamental issues. For example, they are now saying that you have to have 20 years status through you have to be married for 20 years to a Caymanian spouse for you to be able to get status. I
On the
mean,
grounds of
does this
marriage.
really
On the grounds of
on the
marriage.
grounds of marriage? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. On the
Remember,
grounds
this
of
is
marriage.
phase one of a number of phases. And the cry was
Yeah.
that people were getting a fast track to Caymanian citizenship through marriage. I still highlight, you can't marry a Caymanian and then the same Caymanian is crying out for immigration reform when you look at the amount of statuses that are being granted is through the marriage to Caymanian. If you understand what I'm saying.
They found that out. Yes.
Yeah. So who is breaching the law is the very same Caymanians that is crying for immigration reform because they're getting married and it is doing this free for all. We have to own up to that fact.
Yes, and yes, we have to own up to that fact. And I find, to me, it's a little bit odd that, let us imagine I get married to a Caymanian today, and then we have a child. That child will be 18, 19 years old before I can get status. I mean, does that make sense? Even 3, 4 children, who are, maybe 15, 18, 19, and still you don't give status.
But those kids would be entitled to it before you. Especially if I'm the Caymanian, those kids would be entitled to Caymanian acknowledgement.
Yeah, but what coherence does it give to the family unit if one member of that family can stay up to 19 years without any
permanent tenure? Yeah, no, I get your point, and that has been one of the probing discussions. They're saying, why are you penalizing? This is not the way to go. Deal with the naturalization side of thing, which is the British Nationality Act that we know locally we can't control that because that's dealt with in the United Kingdom. So that is a wider conversation because a lot of people disagree with penalizing me being married to a Caymanian, which is also reflected in the fees because you're seeing where the status on the grounds of marriage is now $2,000.
Yeah, it's almost as if there's an assumption that half the marriages are
correct,
are
fake, are sham.
Mm-hmm. Sham. I don't think so. Let me mention the last point in support of the broader point. The broader point being that rather than inconvenience people in these small ways, deal with the fundamentals, like this issue of how many people you're grandfathering in. There was a law which was placed some time back. I think initially when you applied for PR, you pay the application fee, and then when the PR is granted, then you paid the grant fee. But they changed that to say, well, you have to pay everything when you apply. So if you apply for PR, you have to apply to pay the application fee as well as the grant fee.
Yeah,
and I don't see it.
That's a tiered system based on your income. And that's PR of 8 years for independent, not independent means for being here 8 years.
Yeah.
Residence and employment rights certificate, who's been a legal ordinary resident for 8 years, where it says if you have an income of 20,000 per annum or less, it's 500 for the issue fee, which is the approval fee. And then if your income is 20 to 40,000, it's 1,250. If it's between 40,000 and 60, it's 2,500. If it's 60,000 to 80,000, then it's 3,750, 80 to 100,000, 5,100, 100,000 to 150,000. It's 9,000, and then at 150,000 per annum and above 12,500. So when you apply for permanent residence for being here on the grounds of residency, 8 years or more, you're not only applying, you're not only paying at the time of submission, the filing fee, you're also paying the fee of wherever you fall in this category.
In case you are granted status.
In case you're but this is paid up front. And then you're also paying
why
400 per dependent.
Why do you have to pay up front?
That's the rules. Because that's the law that they've made upon submission.
But what is the rationale for that rule? Because to me, the way I see it, it was just another way of saying, we are not happy with the number of PRs that are being granted. Let us just complicate the life for some people, because some people were unable to apply for for PR because they could pay the application fee, they could do all the other things and so on, but they didn't have the money to pay the grant fee.
But remember now,
which you are,
permission to continue working, because these applications in some cases were taking 2, 3, 4 years to be approved. And once an application was submitted prior to the expiry of your final work permit, under the immigration law, there were no provisions to be granted another work permit as defined by law because you had exhausted your term limit. So because of a pending application, I know I'm not answering the question, but I'm just filling in the gaps for the purpose of this conversation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
For the facility to work, legally work, whilst you're waiting on the application to be approved, every 6 months, you had to file a permission to continue working, which attracted half of the work permit fee that aligns with your last work permit held. Now, to answer your question, why would you attract up front an approval fee up front? I can't answer that. I don't know.
Yeah, because the thing you've explained, Sabrina, I understand it. Like if it takes 3-4 years, you can't just stay without paying anything. Why? Because you don't have permanency yet.
And you're making an income.
But if that, then you are making an income. To me, you could even say, okay, fine. During this time, you pay, of course, your filing fee, but during this time, we will ask you to pay a certain amount, a smaller amount, maybe even half, because for that reason. And that I would understand. But to say, well, whether or not it will be granted, you pay the full grant fee, and then if it's not granted, it will be returned to you. To me, it looks like you're just trying to make it hard for
Actually,
people.
it was being refunded to employers, and that in itself was causing a problem because many persons themselves were paying this fee out of their own pocket. And what has been reported is that the refunds were going back to their final employer, to their last employer, and their employer hadn't paid it. And some persons were at a loss for paying for these refunds. Now, if that has changed, I don't know.
That would certainly be something that would have to be dealt with. But you see, for me, basically, I say the government is doing all these little things as a way of, I think, registering their displeasure that they are not happy with the amount of PR and status they are giving. And to me, like the 4 things that I mentioned here, I think that the way I interpret them is more like they are just trying to make things more difficult for people. What they should do
But isn't that what the people
asked in a real way?
Sir, that's what the people asked for. Whether or not it's fair, whether or not it's constitutionally correct is where the guidance of the learned legal in-house support is actually supposed to guide them. And you will have Caymanians that are saying, look, what do you expect? You expect us to have PR and people just be here for free? The Caymanian people says this is what we want. And to go back to the fees that you're asking, why up front? Now, if this money is going into central government coffers and it has taken 3, 4, 5 years, don't you think the Ministry of Finance knows how much money is held in escrow? And that is probably steering the course for some of the numbers that makes us not fall afoul of the FFR? Even though it is isolated into one ministry, if let's say all of these persons are applying for PR, we don't know what this number is, right? And let's say a good portion of that is a good chunk of money that actually made us kept us out of the red. Maybe that was the way of thinking. The only true person can answer that is the Minister of Finance and Mr. Jefferson, and also the chief officer of and the financial officer in WORC. Because remember, you have bond that is no longer a bond because it's non-refundable. And for every grant that is paid, it's a non-refundable $200. Now, if there's, let's say, 40,000 work permits right now that everyone is on a grant, times that by $200, that's non-refundable.
Yeah. But you see, talking about what people want, I can say that this new immigration legislation has not done what the people in Cayman want.
And you kept
Because
saying
I was
that.
listening to, yeah, because they haven't. Because what people said was, look, you are granting too much status. You are not going to be. We are going to be a minority. Well, the Caymanians are only already a minority. I believe at about 37%. This is not achieving what you want to achieve. These little things which are doing more inconvenience to people than they are helping government financially or otherwise. This is not where the solution is. Okay, you have adopted like provisions that are really disproportionate and duly onerous. They are based on an assumption that people practically were not even entitled to status. But meanwhile, you leave the other door gaping wide open, which is the door which the people wanted you to close. You didn't close that door. Now you want to do these little things, to somehow please people. I love Elio Solomon. Sometimes he used to love saying, you know what, it's always very nice to do certain things which look like you are doing something when you are not actually doing much. In this particular case, for example, you can be sure, I guarantee you, under these provisions, there will be an increase of grants and PR, and these monies which they are collecting now are not going to reduce the grants. What is going to continue increasing with the grants, it will be because you have grandfathered in everybody. That's what people want. You haven't done what people want. You have told the people that, well, yeah, we're going to be tough now, 20 years, this and that. You haven't even told them that these 20 years is not going to start applying until at the end of 15 years. You haven't even told them that. But people are now saying, well, yeah, I think they are now being very, very tough. I asked Steve McField, Roy Borden, as well as Teresa Pitkin on the other show, do you think this immigration law is going to change this inexorable journey where Caymanians are a minority in their own country? Do you think it is going to change that? They didn't answer me.
Because
Okay.
it's not going to
So-
change it. And bearing in mind, and
Yeah.
this is the truth, this is not by any means, please, and
Yeah.
please put on your thick armor with the rule. We're not coming after any government official or any administration. We're
Yeah.
just having real talk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what it's happening is that the percentage remains very low of generational Caymanians, okay? And
Yes.
what is happening is that no, this is not meeting what the people have asked for in immigration
Yes.
reform. But who is bold enough in an elected capacity to said, we are doomed possibly if we become so what's the word I'm looking for? If we do what you asked for exactly how you asked it, because there are constitutional ramifications. There are, just to say, look, we're going to just stop, close the door, jam shut. I don't care. Anything that is pending, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you go. We're giving you 24 hours to leave. Can they do that? Because that would be a reflection of a lot of the louder voices that have been making their voices heard. But does that speak for the masses who understand the balance? We're not saying that we don't want to protect Cayman identity, but this slam the door shut, let's stop it now, could have some serious consequences. And who in their elected mind now is going to just pull up their pants and really just speak honestly about how to deal with the immigration reform, that it's not, as you've alluded so, going to give everybody what they were asking for, because it's just legally not practical.
It's not practical. You see, everybody understands that Cayman needs foreign workers and will do so for a long time to come. But the problem really is that they have not been getting the balance right. Let me talk about the judiciary for a moment, and in relation to what people want. People have always said in the Cayman Islands, why can't we have more Caymanians in the judiciary so that our own people can judge us? Okay? And they've always said that. But what has the government done? Has the government done something to respond to that? No, it hasn't. If anything, they have done the exact opposite, because they have said that rollover is not going to apply to the judiciary. Why? Because we don't want to affect the independence of the judiciary. What a bunch of nonsense. Do you know right now as I speak, There are Court of Appeal judges from the UK who serve on contract. They are given a contract 5 years, and then after that they go. Nobody is saying that, you see, that is affecting the independence of the judiciary.
Mhm.
You have acting judges, like the judge who gave a protection order against me. He is an acting judge. He's actually from the private sector. He's got no security of tenure whatsoever. He's still somebody who is out there looking for work in terms of, clients. And what do you expect that he can sit in that office as a judge and be independent? No, he can't be, because he doesn't have security of tenure. So when it suits you, you can have these people who don't have security of tenure and say it's all right. It doesn't affect independence of the judiciary. But once people say get Caymanians in there, by ensuring that there is rollover in the judiciary as well, so that Caymanians can step into those positions, and you say, oh, but you see, this will affect the independence of the judiciary. This is ridiculous. In other words, people have asked you, we want this to be done, and you don't do it, and you accept a totally cockamamie kind of explanation which has got no legal or ethical foundation to deny what the people want.
But
People, for
caller,
example,
people were
have-
unable to identify these things until the power of platforms like this, persons like yourself, whether or not they like you or not, persons like Denny and Siobhan, and just putting it, people are a little scared. People are a bit frustrated and outright angry, only since we have been bringing it and doing it line by line. And I'm only delivering what the bills are saying, which is why I keep repeating, I can't tell you where their headspace was when this was put into the bill. That's for them to actually explain. And if they're fair with you, they will take the time and tell you from where it is derived and how they came to that.
To that. Look at, for example, under the Public Service Management Law, we've been trying to make the point for a long time that under the Public Service Management Law, it doesn't give a Caymanian any advantage, because all it says is, well, if your qualifications are roughly the same as a foreign person, only then will we give you an advantage. No, if you qualify for the job, they should give you the job. Look, there was somebody who called today on Charles Gideon's show, and this guy said, you know what, I learned to be a painter, and then I also, in addition, had a degree, I think it was a 2-year degree in business, and for 20 years, I haven't been able to get a job. I applied for a certain job, which was going to be a promotion. There were other people applying for that job. 2 of them were expatriates, and that job went to an expatriate. So you are not, there are a lot of things which have to be done, which don't even need a law. They just need better practices and policies, and the government to come out and implement them. And some of them need amendment, but the government doesn't want to do them. The problem is that a lot of people in the government today, I'm sorry to say that, they are nothing but plants from the private sector to come there and do the bidding of the private sector, because that's what is happening. They are not listening to the people. In immigration, they have misled the people. They have not quite said what they have done. What they have done will not even change anything, in fact, substantially. In the next few years, actually, as I close off, you will see an increase in status grants. By 10 or 15 years' time, Caymanians will be down to under 10%. I don't like that, because I identify with Caymanians, but I think he who has ears, let him hear. I'll let you go.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Oof. Sound, but this is why we love this platform. Thank you, caller, for weighing in. It's been a minute. You have been MIA. And Danny, I see you commenting here. And this is why I like presenting these bills and welcome you guys to and continue the discussion. This will go into tomorrow because it is out for public consultation. We know that the powers that be do listen to these platforms. They do actually get reports back as well. But I want to encourage you to go onto the various government websites. And should there be something that comes up, a question, or you need more clarity on, by all means, use the email address to weigh your concerns, or pick up your phone, call your elected representative, have it out with them, do a WhatsApp or something so that you can express your thoughts, your feelings, your concerns, and really ask the probing questions. A lot have been brought to the surface, a lot of things to be considered, a lot of things have definitely been highlighted. And are you feeling, with all of these reforms, be it step 1, 2, or 3 to come, that you are really achieving what you want? And based on what you have asked for, do you feel that that is the solution? It has been my pleasure bringing you another episode of Sabrina Speaks. I appreciate all of you for your calls, your messages, your concerns, and even your WhatsApps. Please join me tomorrow for another episode right here on CMRTV.com, where we will continue to elevate, talk, educate, inform, and definitely highlight things that matter. It has been my pleasure. Love you lots. Take care. See you tomorrow.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.